So let's get started with today's session. So very good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all you wonderful students who have joined me today in discussing and continuing with our session on EPL. EPL stands for Exercises of Practical Life, one of the first important practical life exercise activities that we do it in our environment. In the previous class, we discussed about the 5 different areas in Montessori, starting with preliminary exercises. Then we also looked into exercises which took care about a person, exercises on the environment, exercises which is going to help our children on coordination and movement. We also would be able to look into exercises which talks about grace and courtesy. Having all of these 5 different areas, we saw 2 different areas, and the third one is what we had to begin with. So let's understand very much in detail, like what is practical life. It is the activity that we do it in our Montessori classes, which is helping my children to work and cultivate on independence. We are going to instill a sense of responsibility in the younger children. Yes, we agree on that. So this is very, very important that we need to be working on this. Second, importantly, we also saw some of the key areas. In today's session, we will be primarily focusing on these 2 areas. One is how should a child be able to care for the environment? Then the next one is like in case if you want to look into your personal care, what are the activities that you have to be working? Now, say, suppose if I'm working on my environmental care, I have to be working with the children in making sure that they are engaged in tasks which is related to caring for their classroom, caring for their house, caring for their home environment, depending on which environment that the child is. Environment is nothing but a place at which the child is. Now, say, suppose if you're there in a garden today, sitting in a garden, your environment becomes your garden. So you take care of the garden. You don't throw things over there. You don't spoil the ambience of that particular garden. You don't litter around, right? So those would be you taking care of the environment. Now, what about my personal care? I have to be working more on my personal hygiene. I have to take care of myself. And at the same time, I should also be able to take care of my developmental skills, which is helping me to grow in my life. So these would be my areas that I would be focusing on. Now, apart from all of that, is my practical life helping me to enhance children's skills? Definitely, yes. See, they are involved in motor skills, right? So they are fiddling with certain objects. So that means I'm working on my fine motor development. Child is moving from one place to another, carrying certain things which could be heavy, which could be light. There is a lot of movement which is happening. So we are trying to work on enhancing their motor skills also, be it fine motor, be it gross motor. When a child is able to work independently on these 2 skills, we are promoting independence. We are helping them to concentrate in the class activities. This is very fundamental. If a child is unable to concentrate on any activity, it becomes very difficult for you to engage the child. Their focus will be deteriorated. Focus, concentration is something which is very, very fundamental skill for our daily living. Without focus, can we do any work? Highly impossible, right? We will not be able to concentrate. We shift and we move from one activity to another very easily, very quickly. We keep moving. So, what were some of the exercises that we could see? Like, give them more on spooning. They can transfer from one bowl to another. Does it increase concentration? Definitely, yes. Does it increase the focus? Yes. Is the child being engaged? Yes. Is it a useful activity? Yes. Do you see it in your day to day life? Yes. We need spooning exercises. Now, when a child is unable to do that, that becomes the error of control. You educate the child, you teach them so that their hand skills would be very much perfect. Likewise, I can give them pouring. I can give them the dry pouring. Initially, I can pick up grains. I ask them to transfer the grains from one mug to another. I can ask them to pour the grains from one bowl to another, or transfer or pour. I can also use activities wherein I can use the tweezers. See, when I give them the tweezers, I'm working more on my fine motor skills. I can give them beads, I can give them pom-poms. So the thing is, the child is just transferring. Every time he's transferring, he's doing transfer, but at the same time, he has to use the tweezer to hold on to that pressure and then carry that object to the other side. So this needs fine motor development. I can ask the child to sort beads or buttons based on colors. Again, sorting becomes one of the very simple exercise. I can again use tools for that. I can still give tweezers to actually work on it. So you're still working on a fine motor skills. What about pegging? This is a beautiful material. If you don't have this in your classroom, you can tie a thread to your window. Give them the actual pegs. The more that the child is applying pressure on the pegs, again, we are working on the muscular movement. So, pegging clothes is also one of the preliminary exercises where we give it to a child wherein he has to work on his day-to-day exercises. There's definitely washing clothes. Once he has washed the clothes, the child should be able to peg it. So this is again an important skill for a child to actually look into it. Not only that, keeping our surroundings clean, because when we spoke about environment, we always focus on keeping our desk clean, our chair clean, our surroundings clean. Now, what if my desk is really dirty? I have to also teach children about how can I wash my table. I'm not going very much in detail about how do we wash. There is a set of protocols and procedures. We also teach about folding the napkin. How do we hold it with our thumb and other thing. So if you're a diploma student, I think we would have spent at least 30 minutes on every activity. We have done this demonstration. We have done that cleaning the table. We have learned about what are the materials which is required. And since it is like a part of a very quick session, I'm just giving you an examples like these can be incorporated all together. We're not going deeper into it. Okay, let me move to the next one. In case if I'm talking about hygiene, if I'm talking about how can I care for myself, what is my next thing that I work on caring for myself? It could be hand washing. Just like how the child is getting dressed independently, we can also help the child to work on hand washing. Now, when we are working on hand wash, what we do, we have to use a hand washing table. So when I'm saying hand washing table, it is not a very fancy thing. It's just a simple table on which you will make sure you have all of that. You have a basin to wash their hands, you have a jug or a mug, you have some water, you have a bucket which is very clean, you have the liquid soap to wash your hands, you have a dry towel, you have a hand towel, right? All these things are very important for us to be much prepared. Once you have everything being prepared, you can begin introducing these activities like this. So preparation time is very, very important. So can I introduce every day one EPL skill to my child? Definitely yes, go ahead. Every day, teach them one life skill. Be it washing hands, be it rolling their sleeves, anything. Or pegging. Every day, if you're introducing one practical life skill, it becomes easy. Not only this, the other important challenge for teachers is like making sure that the children are removing their shoes, wearing the shoes. If you teach them dressing, undressing, wearing their shoes, removing their shoes, wearing the socks, removing the socks, keeping it in a very responsible position, it saves a lot of your time and energy. And the child is also mastering the skill. This is something which is difficult for them. In case if it involves laces, if it involves buckles, if it involves buttons in their shoes, it becomes little difficult for a child. To make it hassle free, Montessori also discusses about this. So our primary aim of working on dressing or dressing frame should be like the child should be independent in wearing his own clothes. This has to be your finest thing. So you can also create competitions like who wears the shirt first, who wears the shoe first. You can definitely have all of that. The more you involve children into the dressing exercises, the more you are giving him independence for his own formation. The child should be independent. They will never be embarrassed in the washroom if they're unable to pull their pants up after they pass, after they pee or poop. They should be able to clean up themselves. So, all these things are one of the primary skills that we have to be working on. And every time that the child is getting involved into learning these exercises, the child will feel so confident. This is your ultimatum, I could say. This is the ultimate importance that you give it for your children in your classes. Now how do we help it? We have to use something called as dressing frames in our classes. If you notice here, these are the materials that comes as a bundle. So you can begin with buttons, you can have hooks and eye, you can also have buckles, you can have laces, you can have zips, you can have snaps. All of these frames are designed beautifully in such a way that you can engage your children so that they learn how to dress, how to undress. In this process of dressing and undressing, if there are anything that they encounter, be it buttons or hooks or laces or buckles or snaps, the child will be able to undertake that task in a very controlled, manageable way. They will not fiddle around. So they will not be hesitant of not working on it. They would start working on it, right? So that becomes your dressing frame. Now, do I have a tool? Do I have a material? How do I store all of that? This is a frame that you get it. Now, in this entire frame, you will have all of these dressing frames: button frame, buckle frame, hook and eye frame, lacing frame, zipper frame, snaps frames. You will be able to get all these dressing frames in our classes. So you can keep it. Each week, you can introduce one. And from there, you ask children to bring some clothes from home, which involves all of this. Now, in case if your shoes has laces, teach them to tie the shoes. Regularly teach them to tie the shoes. If the child is putting a ribbon, teach them how to put a ribbon. If your collar buttons have buttons in the school t-shirts, ask them to button and unbutton. If they are wearing a school belt, if it has buckles, let the child use it every day. You can teach them these practical life skills with the material or the objects that they are using. This is very essential for all of us. But whatever it could be, what I see always is like it's very essential. It's a real life skill that we have to be working on. And the more you give practice to children, the more they get better. Now, how is your presentation? As I mentioned, if I have 9 children in my classes, 9 trays has to be set. Can I duplicate the sets, two practicals of the same exercises? No. We don't need to duplicate any tray because the child should understand, let me wait, my friend is doing that exercise. Taking turns is important. So we don't duplicate if I have multiple children. Every skill is one material. Now I have 9 students, so 9 skills I have already worked upon it. So let them do independently, and you can go over and again, and you can start reinforcing what the other child is actually trying to work on it. Okay. So this is how you would keep your material ready and set before you get started with your classes. Now, say if you are working in a proper Montessori school, what is very important for us to work over here is like you are directly or indirectly involved with children in teaching things so that they become confident, so that they become self-reliance. Correct? We know that our classrooms are child-sized and all the material in our classes is child-sized friendly, furnitures and all of that. So everything is easy. Everything is accessible to a child. The child can pick a material and keep it back, right? So this is very important for us to keep in mind. So nothing has to be hidden. Everything has to be displayed to the child so that they would be able to see visually and they can choose an activity. So this is called freedom of movement. This is called a choice of learning something of their own liking. This is also called freedom within restriction. The teacher has restricted her shelf. Only these activities is what we are actually doing. When a child gets interested, he goes there, he picks up something, starts to learn. There is auto education. As teachers, we do not interfere, right? So you are just facilitating an exercise. You're just facilitating how to do these exercises. You're just being a guidance to the child, but you are not teaching anything. You're just directing the child how well that they can actually perform. Definitely, there will be error as the child does. That's when you will interfere. Let the child do a lot of errors and trials. Through error and control, through multiple trials, they would overcome all the fears and they become much independent. Okay, so this is an overview of why we do practical exercises in our classes. We have understood, like, in case if I'm able to do these exercises, how my child is getting benefited. So this is going to be your first part of today's our exercise. Now we have also seen that we definitely need something else, right? So on the second exercise, the second exercise of our today's class is going to be how do we care about our environment? So what's our environment right now? Everybody is doing this lesson from your home. So home is your environment. Okay. So when you take a look around your environment, just everybody take a look around your environment. Take a look around. Do you feel it's neat? Do you feel it's organized? Do you feel You can be able to find material. If you're not there in the room, and if somebody enters that room, and if they want a particular object or a material, can you guide them? This is in this shelf, this, can you guide them? If you're able to do that, that means there is order, there is good amount of placement that you have actually done and you have followed something. So care of an environment could be at any given instance, how do you work with that environment, how do you make it safe for children to learn? That is more important. And how do we keep it really good so that others can use that environment? See, we have, when we have guests at home, we take utmost care, right? The room has to be tidy, the room has to be really care, the room has to be dust free, it should smell good. We take a lot of care. But if we do that every day, maybe our house would vibrate with a different frequency altogether. The same goes with our classes as well. So the more that you care about how should my shelves be, how I have to orderly keep everything, what are the materials that I will have to be choosing, it becomes a different level altogether. So in today's exercise, we're going to be working on this. So when I'm talking about care of an environment, I can still consider that as an applied exercise. Okay, it comes under applied exercises. So previously we spoke about how do I care for a person? My personal hygiene, I would wash my hands, I will keep my dresses neat, I will wash my dresses, I would peg my dresses when I'm drying and all of that. We took a lot of care about a person. But now we're going to be exclusively working on caring of an environment. So it comes where? It comes under my applied exercise. Now, how do I care my environment? The more the teacher is referring to children when she's interacting with the environment, say for example, if I have a plant in my class, when I start loving that plant, when I start to nurture that plant, when I take a look every day, when I keep the plant in the sunlight for some time, when I give it a little water, when I see is it getting dried or something, if I'm giving it extra nutrients for the plant, that means the child is observing how am I respecting that plant in my classroom. The more I show such love and respect towards nature, the more I show such love and respect towards the world around me, what do you think would happen to children? The children would also try to copy that. They would also start loving the nature the same way as the teacher did so. And same thing if it gets carried at home. Say, for example, if you have lots of greenery around your home, you have a lot of plants, and you're being a good nurturer, right? So you can also include many skills in such a case. Now, if you have a big garden, it needs a lot of work. You need to be picking up the dried leaves. You need to also be moving your the lawn. There's so many other exercises that you're going to be working on. So that means you definitely need a lot more skills than whatever we have completed so far, isn't it? So we're going to see what are the other skills that we can actually take a look through. The first one I could say is like dusting. Dusting is very, very important. Children love it because it seems very enjoyable task for them. The more that they're able to dust, you can say that, your desk is so clean, the window is so clean. Give them that sense of accomplishment. Give them that responsibility. Let them start beginning to dust the items in the classrooms. Now, say for example, to take precautionary, we can always give a mask to a child. Make sure that the child is not allergic to dust. So always check the medical history of the child before you give such and such exercise to them. Always water the plants, give them. See, watering the plants is extremely important. And children start to learn to care by this. And always in your classroom, keep a very tiny plant, so that gives them a genuine love. Every day, give opportunity for each child to go and water. If you have a good garden outside, take them outside. Let them sit under the tree. Let them get that shade and then tell them, like, the tree has grown so tall because somebody had actually really taken care. Now it is your responsibility to take care of that plant. Table setting. How do you set your table? That is important. Before we dine, before we start eating, set the table in a right way. Keep the plate in the same way. If you're a right-handed person, keep your water glass onto the left side. Keep your spoon, your butter knife, and your fork towards your right side and teach them how to exactly eat. So this all comes under your table etiquette, your eating etiquette. It comes over there. So we would be able to work on that. Once you're done with all of that, since I'm still working on my applications, I'm still working on my applied activities, I can also teach children to wash the table if it's really dirty. When I'm saying washing, it's just not wiping. There's a lot of difference between wiping and washing. When I say wash the table, I need to really give it a good scrub until everything is clean. So when I have to scrub, I need to use brushes. I have to have some kind of a liquid soap which takes out all the stains. Once I'm done with that, maybe I have to rinse it. Then I have to wipe it. Then the wet wipe, then again I have to use a dry cloth. I have to dry wipe it until it is completely dry. Then correct, so then I have to clean my brushes, and there's a whole lot of process. I think some of my diploma students would have already seen this in very much in detail, right? So this is going to be really really exciting for children to actually work on this. But make sure you keep this as a compulsory activity, because children will make a lot of mess on the tables. Keep it a day wherein everybody is involved into such an EPL activity, and we all together are going to be washing our tables. Okay, so that's going to be a good one. Now, as I said, outdoor sweeping is important, right? So if I have dried leaves, I can actually sweep them out. Walking on a line, this is my control of movement exercise, I could say. Okay, so under control of movement, what comes is a very less one. So this altogether comes into a different exercise for me. So I have to consider that into my third part. Now, when I have to be working on my third part, I could say, like, once we finish the environment side, we always have to get under the next session wherein you are going to be taking care of how do you walk, how do you control your movements, because movements are very, very essential for me, right? So, in the third part of today's section, in session, we're going to be talking on control of movement. So, most of you know, as soon as I say movement, children can run, they can walk, they can be all over your classes, especially the toddlers. How do you put them in control? So, this exercise is all about that. How can you make them to be in control? You tell them, children, let's make a circle, let's stand in line, let's take a one arm distance, let's take two arm distances. Be it however you want, you're going to be wanting the children to stand still. You want them to be at one particular position and listen to you, or you want them to work in a very coordinated way. So this exercise is going to be helping all of us to work on our control of movement. What could be the easiest one for me is like, when I have to work on controlling the child's body, I would follow this in two ways. One is, I can't stop making them to run around, walk around. So what I do as a teacher, I give exercises. I only encourage them to walk, but I will give restrictions. See, there's a freedom to walk, but again, there is a restriction how to walk. You will walk slowly, or you will walk on a line, or you will walk heel to toe, or you will walk around the floor mat. What happened there? The teacher took control over the child's body, isn't it? We took control. So we took control. So the child is now not running, but the child is walking slowly. The child is walking in a tiptoe way. Now, when we give such exercises, we as teachers are working on child's balance and coordination. We're working on balancing and coordination. The moment you feel confident that yes, this boy and girl is able to do that, I add complex lines to them. I can say walk on a straight line, walk on a curved line, walk on a zigzag line, walk with objects on the floor, walk with two objects on your hands, walk with an object on your head, carry a tray and start walking. I'll give them a glass full of water and I ask them to walk. So what happens there? Every time you add on to a new complex thing, the child starts to take control. Now you're not controlling, the child starts to take control. The more you give them, say for example, if I give them a pile of book, it's heavy already. The child walks very slowly. So the movement is controlled. And the child is also making sure that he doesn't drop those books. The child also has to be notified that if you drop, you might hurt somebody, or you might hurt yourself, or the object could be broken, or it could be damaged also, right? You give them all those safety measures much before they take control. So that's the reason walking on a line is considered to be the most important exercise when it comes down to control of movement. Okay, you can add a lot of extensions. If you see in your books, the diploma students, if you see in your books, you have list of exercises. Walk with one hand, walk with two hands, keep object with one hand, keep objects with two hands, carry a flag, carry a bell, carry a glass full of water, carry a half glass of water, carry multiple objects onto a tray, carry something on your head, right? So again, it comes under different lines. Again, if it comes under different lines, that's when you become a little bit more alert and you take in charge of that. So this is your first one. The second thing, how can I take control of the entire child's body? The second thing is like, I want my class to be quiet. When I want my class to be quiet, I have to introduce silence in my class, right? So silence game is a beautiful way to get the children to calm down. If your class is completely restless or they're anxious, they cannot be quiet when the teacher is actually asking. So you can have wonderful calming games. So you can hold up a charming picture of an animal and you can sign for the children to relax, and then you can hum some verses. You can gently, you can whisper when you're talking, right? So when we do all of that, the child becomes really quiet. Okay, so you can introduce noise and you can introduce silence. So these are the two exercises that you have to work when you're working with control of movement. Okay, so this covers your EPL exercises, wherein control of movement was very essential for all of us to work on our body movements. When we have controlled ability on our body, the child will be very calm. The child will start taking smaller steps as they actually work on. So this is one such exercise that we can actually work in our classes. Moving to the next one. When I say the next one, I wanted to give you all a detailed information about how do you plan your lessons. Now, say for example, you want to teach one thing. Say for example, you want to teach grasping. Just imagine you want to teach grasping. Now, what is grasping? Grasp. You want to take something in your hand. That is grasping. Agree, everybody? So that's grasping. You wanted to pick something from your hand. Now, when I want to introduce grasping, what is the fundamental thing that I have to be looking into it? My fingers are very important. My hand is very important, and the wrist movements are very important. Because when I say grasping, it's related to my fine motor. I'm not using my entire arm to move something. I'm very having a fine movement. So it's a fine motor skill. So wherein I can hold any object, I can manipulate that object. I'm manipulating with what? I'm using only my fingers and sometimes my hands only. But I have a very less movement. So this is my grasping. The second thing, when I'm introducing it to children, why is it so important? Now, all my EPL, if I see my preliminary exercises, most of my exercises are related to grasping. I have to pick something. So my fingers are very, very important in performing this, right? So it's very essential, I could say, in my entire practical life. This is not there in your book as a curriculum, but I wanted to tell you why we are aiming, because we want to have the child to have a better hand-eye coordination. We want them to have a good fine motor control. We want them to have that independence when they're young only. So I, as a parent, or I, as a teacher, I have to introduce all this at the early ages. If you ask me what age, ma'am, maybe 1.5 year or 1 year itself, when the child is about to walk and crawl, they can hold and grasp things, toys and other things, you can also give the smaller ones. Okay. Now, what are the different steps, or how do I start with it? Now, if you will be more worried because on the safety and other things, you're always worried, isn't it? So you can always begin by large objects, introduce by giving them the large objects, which is very easy for a child to grasp. Maybe a toy, maybe a teether, maybe a block, a large bead, or a textured ball, wherein the child is able to hold and give it back. Hold and release it with a comfortable grip. Once they're comfortable with this, you give them the smaller ones. Now, this we call a pincer grip. Very essential for writing, please remember. This is called a pincer grip. Now, I am progressing to activities that encourages my pincer grip. So here I'm restricting my movement only to my thumb and my forefinger. So what do? I give a bowl full of smaller items. Again, the smaller items could be cotton balls, it could be small beads, it could be seeds, any kind of a seed or a sprout you can give them, because they are very tiny and they're edible also. Even if they are putting it into their mouth, it should be edible. Okay, so I'm working on the development. So when the child is holding with that pincer grip, he can transfer. So this is what we do. The third grasping is like it's more complex now. I give them tools like tweezers. I also give them the child sized tongs. These are instruments. Now I will ask the child to transfer that smaller thing using those tools. Now see, the difficult level is even more increasing. Doing it with finger is easy. Now if I have to apply pressure on the tongue, balance it and transfer, I need a lot of muscular strength. So I need a lot of grasping ability, and I should also require more precision when I'm trying to do this. So this is again complexity. So what are you doing? You're moving one level up. You're promoting a little bit more on a higher level on coordination and control. After that, I can give this. See, use colorful things always for coordination and control. See, the child is now able to transfer. Pom poms you can give, cotton balls you can give, or you can ask them to sort based on colors. Again, here there are complex. First, the child can transfer everything one after the other. Now he has to see which color, where it goes. Some more delay. So that means the child will have to hold it for even more number of seconds. Again, I'm increasing the complexity. See how beautifully the curriculum is structured. Then you put them into practical life exercises. When you give pouring exercises, by mistake you spill something, then the child will pick up and start putting it. Now you did a pouring. Now say suppose this boy had spilled some. So you gently pick those. See how you're introducing these into your practical life skills. So always children will pour something or put something down when they're doing pouring or transferring or spooning. So, but again, you can actually hold that grasping ability. So every time you're giving children something to grasp or hold or touch, they're always exposed to textures, they're always exposed to shapes. So we can always encourage children to hold and touch and see how it feels. So it is again helping them to refine their grasping ability because it gives them a different sensory stimuli also. Okay, so sometimes you can also give play doh. They can roll. We have those rolling pins, no? You have that atta making rolling pin. So you can give them a dough and then the child can actually roll. They can also pinch. They can make the shape, circular shape with the dough. And they can also do this. See, every time we have different kind of skills or a what I could say, the new thing that you want to work on, we're always working with our fingers and our hands. So it helps me to work on my finger strength. And I can also know, am I a left-handed person or am I a right-handed person? You will be able to understand. If I give you a chunk of dough and I ask you to make a circle, if a child is doing like this, I'm a right-handed. The child is doing this way, you're a left-handed. So you will be able to identify the dexterity of a child. Is he right-handed? Is he left-handed? So again, more challenges for me as a teacher and as a child also to work with. Now I give all tools. See, these are all related to my grasping. So I can have brushes, combs, kitchen utensils, any tool that is responsible or any tool that you need to practice holding, grasping, which you're using it in your day-to-day life, you give them. You give them. This is going to refine their grasp ability. So all the kitchen tools we can actually give them. We can also include art, right? Say, for example, when I'm having art skills, child-friendly scissors we can give for the finger control. You can draw lines, you can give them a bowl. The child can be able to cut them into smaller pieces. Again, I can use all the cut pieces into my art exercises. So always use a child-friendly scissors. See how I'm putting that into my art. So there's a transition to a little bit more intricate activities. When I say intricate, more difficult one, more challenging ones for the child to work on. Now I can again have cutting. to make it even more fun, in case if you have colorful pastas, you can cut them, sort them into different colors, or you dip them into different paints. All these would be my activities. I can also bring my dressing frames. When I'm working on my grasping, my dressing frames is also helping me to work on promoting the independence of my grasping ability. So overall, you as a teacher should observe every child. How are they progressing? Is this activities challenging for them, or is it very difficult, or are we continuously working on the skill development? When we do all this, when we give the structured progressive exercises for our child, the child is going to learn everything naturally. There is no pressure at all for the child. So this is very, very essential. Okay, so this was our some of the grasping exercises. Now you can see how the lesson plans go. So for each activity, you need to think as teachers, what are the other possibilities, what are the other possibilities, how can I use, what are the tools. Now what could be my other areas of interest that I can actually work, what is the skill that my child is going to be working on. So when you start listing all of this in your lesson plans, your simple exercise of grasping becomes such a tedious exercise. Now, can you do the same skill for 1 month? So many exercises, so many activities you have it, right? So when you start doing more and more, you get a lot of other activities. Okay, so that was grasping.